Hey guys, it's Tammy. Welcome to my channel. Today I am doing part 3 in my latest batch of sample sniff videos. I'm always sampling fragrances, of course, but this time I had so many samples that I broke it up into 3 parts. I do have a playlist of all my sample sniff videos that I've ever done. I will link it up here. Which way is it? And in the description box below if you're interested in that. I have to say this time there were a lot more winners than there were in the last video, so I'm feeling a little less jaded, a little more hopeful, and I feel like my excitement for perfumes has returned. So starting out with a real hit for me was Zenobia by Tomavicci. When I first sprayed this out, I was a little bit surprised because I got a little bit of that lemon pledge style opening in the very best way possible. Sort of like Kerosene Unknown Pleasures, Dolce & Gabbana Devotion, like one of those really sweet, deep citrus scents. But then it slowly morphed into a fragrance more in the style of Mula Mula by Byron Perfumes or Xerjoff La Capitale. So a sweet, fruity vanilla balm balanced with a spicy, deep, woody earthiness. So what Zenobia had most in common with La Capitale is sort of that amber, saffron, rose, leather combo that gives it that deep, mysterious, dark feeling to it. But Zenobia had a lot more florals in it, which really softened it up, and it actually gave it more interest, in my opinion. And the only fruitiness that's in Zenobia is coming from black currant, whereas La Capitale has peach and strawberry, and some of those notes that sometimes can come across smelling a little bit synthetic to me. And Mula Mula has strawberry and peach as well. And in that one, they're done almost a little more sharply, even than they are in La Capitale. Mula Mula and Zenobia have something in common, and they have actual oud in them. So I compared Zenobia and Mula Mula on skin, and the openings were very different. Like I said, Zenobia had more of that lemon gourmand opening, whereas Mula Mula has like the berries and the caramel. But they got more and more similar by the minute. All in all, I'd say Zenobia is a more creamy and rich version of Mula Mula. It has more depth. It has almost like a chocolatey, woody presence to it. And you know, Mula Mula has been on my wish list for a long time, but for some reason, I've never pulled the trigger on it. But Zenobia had something a little more to it than Mula Mula. It had a little bit more interest and depth and richness, warmth to it, which is why I ordered a travel size of Zenobia. I'm so excited, you guys. This just arrived last night, actually. And I'm just so happy to have it. Like, I love Mula Mula. I love that style of fragrance. I love La Capitale. I just have never gotten those because I don't know if there's just something a little bit synthetic in them, but Zenobia just has the classiness, the chocolatiness, the richness, the depth, but it still has that sweet vanilla oud combo that I love. I'm so excited to have this. Oh my gosh, I'm really happy. The price on this was very reasonable. First of all, I found a 10% discount code. The shipping was free. The travel size was, I think it was like $40 Canadian, which is not bad. And it arrived, and maybe it just slipped through, I don't know, but I didn't have to pay any customs or duty on it. So I'm so excited. I sprayed this last night, and my husband and my son both commented on it. They're like, okay, that one smells good, because I'm constantly spraying perfumes here, constantly. And both of them were like, ooh, that one smells good, but you just spray. So, oh my God, I'm just so excited to have this, you guys. So sticking with Tomavicci, I tried another one of theirs, Empyrean. And the very first time I smelled it, I really wasn't seeing the comparison to Delice that everyone is always talking about. But when I compared them side by side, yes, they were so similar. But Empyrean was a more creamy and less tart version of Delice. So if you find Delice a little bit sharp and a little bit tart, I feel like Empyrean would be the one for you. Since I had sprayed them on my skin, when I smelled them up close, I was getting actually a little bit of a rubbery smell from Delice, almost like when you're blowing up a beach ball. And I didn't get any of that from Empyrean. I was just getting a creamy, rosy, sweet scent from that. And every time I smelled them, and I would compare one and the other, every single time, Empyrean was more smooth and creamy and natural smelling, and Delice was a little sharp and tart and a little bit synthetic smelling. So if you were tossed up between these two, I would definitely go with Empyrean over Delice. And if I was going to purchase it, I would go for Empyrean as well. So let's stick to rose perfumes for a little bit. As you know, I'm in my rose era. So Guerlain Rose Chérie. I had gotten to smell this into Saks Fifth Avenue when I was in Florida. And I remember I liked it, but I had so many overwhelming smells that day. You know, when you're in a department store and you're just smelling perfume after perfume, it all blends together. And I just knew it was pretty and girly and rosy, but I just didn't get a chance to really form my opinions clearly on it. So I did get a sample and I've been playing around with it, comparing it to all my rose perfumes. That is smelling so nice right now. So I found it to be a little bit of a soapy rose in the best way possible. Like, I love soapy scents. I love clean, soapy, fresh scents. And this smelled almost like you had a basin of really warm water and you poured in Ivory Snow, the powdered laundry detergent that you use for baby clothes, and you took your hands and you swished it all up in the warm water until, sorry about the jingle jangles again, I should take this off. I think I will take it off actually. And you swished your hands into the water until it was all sudsy, and then you dumped in a couple big bottles of rose water. So it's a relaxing, warm, comforting scent. It does give me that sudsy, warm, bubbly feeling. It's really mood enhancing. Like, just since spraying it, I'm in a better mood. And another rose scent I tried is Villa Primerose by Atelier Desor. The bottle for this one is so pretty. I love that light pink, and I think it would go so nicely with my bottle of Pink Me Up with the dark pink. Can you imagine those together? This I found to be a little bit more of a classic rose scent, not necessarily vintage, but just a little bit old school. There was a little bit of fruitiness in the opening, a little bit of a green tinge, like a grassy smell. In my head, this was giving me a little bit of Love Frequency by Charlotte Tilbury. Let me just give you a little bit of a backstory on that. I did review the Charlotte Tilbury emotion evoking set, and out of all of them, there were only 2 that I really liked. And I did a little giveaway and I gave the discovery set away to one of my subscribers. But the 2 that I mentioned in this video, which side is it? I can never remember which side it is. I kept on thinking about them, so I ended up getting travel sizes of both of them. And one of them was Love Frequency, and I really enjoy that one. It does remind me a little bit of Fenty, and it's a little bit of an old school rose too. It doesn't have a lot of sweetness. It's just kind of a rose, like a rose scent, just rose. So when I was comparing Villa Primerosa to Love Frequency, I found Love Frequency to be a little bit more of a just classic, fresh, clean rose scent. And Villa Primerosa had some weird smells to it at times. It got a little bit of a sour pungency to it. There was something that I couldn't quite describe. It was almost a little bit chemical or a little maybe metallically sour. It reminded me a little bit of either a 9-volt battery or ink or something. I just couldn't put my finger on it. It was just a little bit weird. And I was even wondering if I was getting a little bit of that muscle rub liniment smell that I get in Gritti and some other rose perfumes sometimes. And later on in the dry down, I was thinking, okay, yes, this is reminding me a little bit of Penhaligon's Elizabethan Rose, which I also find has that little bit of a muscle rub smell to it, like the minty wintergreen smell. The thing about Villa Primerosa is it was always a little bit faint and it was never really strong and never long lasting. I tried it 2-3 times and I didn't find it long lasting. I didn't find it strong. So if you like Gritti or Elizabethan Rose or something like that, I would just stick with those and stay away from Villa Primerosa, but it's up to you. Maybe you want to get your nose on it. So let's switch gears a little bit and let's talk about Chris Collins' Lust Oud Delice. This is very sweet, very warm, very gourmand. And it's pretty simple. I mean, it has a little bit of woodiness to it. It actually really reminds me of my husband's favorite cereal, which is brown sugar mini wheats. And it leans even a little bit to the maple mini wheats, if you've ever smelled those. So ordinarily, maybe this would be a little bit too gourmand, a little too sweet for me, but there is quite a bit of woods in it. It has sandalwood and oud, and there's some nuttiness in it. I think it has hazelnut, maybe walnut or something. But the hazelnut and walnut do go a little bit like hazelnut and walnut extract, like a little bit intensely sweet. So if you can handle a very true gourmand, like a very warm, sweet fragrance, I think this is beautiful. For me, I might layer it just because I do need a little bit more balance in it. It reminds me sort of maybe a creme brulee, but drizzled with chocolate. By the way, it's actually much better on skin than on paper. On skin, you do get a little bit more of the depth. It's really pretty. Like, it reminds me of being at your favorite restaurant and you're sitting there and they bring you your favorite dessert. You're sipping on coffee, there's candlelight, you're talking to someone, having a wonderful conversation. It just gives me a really happy, comforting feeling. I think this is a really well done fragrance, and it might not be exactly my style, but if you love gourmands, I really think you should check this one out. So the next one was a little bit of a mess. It was kind of all over the place for me. This is 1970 by Rosendo Mateu. I picked this up because some of my really good friends on YouTube really like this one, Giorgio Tonka, Joanna Mercado, and they talk about it quite a bit. I just really couldn't get on board with it. When you first spray it out, it actually opens up like a combination between Goo Gone, Lemon Pledge, and Orange Power. Orange Power was a cleaner that we used my entire childhood growing up. So my parents had tourism cottages here on the island. They were in our yard, beautiful view of the water. There were 3 cottages, and all summer when the tourists came, they stayed at our cottages, and it was my job and my sister's job all summer, every summer, to clean the cottages. And Orange Power was the cleaner that we used for probably the entire time that we had the cottages. And that's kind of what this opens up like. And if you've ever smelled Goo Gone, I'm serious, it really smells a lot like Goo Gone. So yeah, it's a citrus and it does go almost a little bit chemical to me. But then the spices come out, and oh my gosh, do they ever come out. And I'm talking about like cinnamon, cloves, ground into a fine powder so that it's like, you would almost touch it and it would almost like evaporate, just like a fine powdered spice. So if you remember my video on my summary of the summery scents, and I talked about all the body sprays, I let you guys know that I don't think that citrus goes with cinnamon, in my opinion, because when I was talking about Fleur Moonstone, and it was so odd to me, just totally out of pocket. Like, I just could not figure that scent out. This is kind of in the same vein for me. I'm not saying they smell alike, but I did not like this one. Now, when I tested this a second time, I was getting a little bit more of the Unknown Pleasures by Kerosene vibe. So I could see how people could like it, and maybe it could grow on me. I mean, it's not terrible. I just really couldn't get on board with it. It just has a funny, rubbery, chemically, orangey, citrusy, cinnamony. It was just not for me. Do you like this one? Have you tried it? So now I'm going to talk about Clicksong by Nuit Nomade. I've been wanting to smell this one for a long time, and it's really pretty. When it first opens up, it opens up with like rose and chocolate. It is absolutely stunning. It's gorgeous, but that only lasts for like 10 seconds. And then there's something really sharp and resinous that kind of comes in and creeps in, covers up that rose and chocolate a little bit. It's probably oud. It reminded me a little bit of Michael Kors Starlight Shimmer. When I compared those, I found Starlight Shimmer was a little bit more of a smoky rose. I also compared it to Genesis by Brandt, and I found that one a little bit more of a creamy sandalwood, a little more rich, and there was a little bit more to it. I also compared it to Lake and Sky Midnight 07, and that one was softer, more easygoing, a little prettier. I just found Clicksong to be a little bit dry, and it just didn't have much flavor to it, if that makes sense. Yeah, it just wasn't as flavorful. That's not even the right term because I'm not eating it, but you know what I mean. It just was a little bit dry and woody. I loved the opening. I wish the opening would stay like it was, like that chocolate and rose together. It was gorgeous, but it just didn't last. And so I probably wouldn't go for a full bottle of Clicksong, but I mean, I really like this style of fragrance and I did like it. It just is not going to be the one for me. Okay guys, now brace yourself for some Hammer by Lorenzo Pazzaglia. I just have a little dabber sample, but I have been putting this little dabber through its paces. I'm telling you, this perfume had me going down a rabbit hole unlike any one I've ever gone down. I compared it to every fruity fragrance, every fruity sample that I could get my hands on, everything in my collection, everything in my upstairs perfume closet, everything. I really, really like it. It is really pretty, fruity, creamy. It's natural smelling, like it's not too much of an artificial fruit. Although at times I realized that it actually smells like, have you ever seen the LA Colors nail polish removers like that are scented, the grape one, and they're like an oily, they're a little pad and they're oily and you remove your nail polish with them. The grape scented one actually reminded me a lot of Summer Hammer. But anyways, when I first applied it, every time I dabbed it on my hand, I did get a little bit of a nail polish smell just for 10 seconds, just for 10 seconds. I do get the mango and the coconut and the pineapple and the bergamot. I get all of them in this. Do I pick up coconut milk or white florals? Not really, not per se, but I do get a really nice creaminess with this fragrance, and that's probably where that's coming from. There's marine notes and vetiver, and that does give it freshness, and it makes it feel really outdoorsy. It reminds me a little bit of a mixed fruit gelato. It's not as creamy as ice cream, but it's not as tart and watery as a sorbet. I compared this to Narco Oasis by Narcotica, and that was much more of sort of a peach juice kind of smell. Oh my gosh, I compared it to Paco Rabanne Fame. I compared it to Simone Andreoli's Sunsplosion. I compared it to Amber Oud Gold because I heard it smelled similar to Herba Pura. And Amber Oud Gold is a dupe for Herba Pura, and it wasn't anything like it. I could not find anything that smelled like this. I'd heard it was similar to God of Fire, and I had the Juliana's Perfumes version of that, a sample of it. That one was much more like soapy, musky, kind of green. And this is just like fruit, like a fruit cocktail, like I said, a fruit gelato, mixed fruit gelato to me. I thought I had found the thing that smells like it. I was like, I found it. It's Carioca Crush by Sol de Janeiro. But at times they did smell quite similar, but it wasn't that. I saw that Frag Bar has a dupe of Summer Hammer for $35, and I thought maybe I should get that. It's a 30 ml bottle, and I could get it like as a tester just to see if I would ever go for a full bottle of Summer Hammer. Anyway, I was intrigued by it. I was loving it. I didn't purchase it, but I could. Stay tuned. So Äican by Kajal. This one is like fresh squeezed orange juice mixed with a little bit of peach juice, and it has crushed up pine needles. That's what it smells like to me. You took orange juice, peach juice, mixed them, and crushed up evergreen needles, pine needles, all in it. That's what it smells like to me. It's very refreshing. It's really nice. When I give you guys these crazy descriptions about crushing up pine needles in orange juice, I'm not saying them in a bad way. I'm just saying that's what it smells like to me. That doesn't mean it's a bad smell. Wouldn't you want to smell that? I think it's beautiful. I really like it. So I only have a couple more left. This is White Pearl by the House of Oud, and this is a very marine coconutty smell. It's very light and ethereal. It reminds me of a girl at the beach in a white flowy dress. It's very pretty, but it's very, very marine, really marine, almost like, yes, salty, but almost mineralic, very aromatic and pungent in a way, but yet still ethereal. It really is very pretty. I compared it to Ellis Brooklyn Salt. I found that one to be more sweet and had a lot more sweetness from the ylang. They both have ylang, but and a lot more creaminess from the sandalwood. I compared it to Salt Air by Skylar. They did have a little bit of similarity. The first one that popped into my head when I smelled White Pearl was Womanity by Mugler, and I have a decant of that, and I compared them, and that was actually probably the closest of any of them, but even that was sweeter than this. It's not that White Pearl doesn't have any sweetness, but it is very aromatic and almost seaweedy. White Pearl's almost more seaweedy, but in a pretty and ethereal way. I thought about comparing this to Pacific Rock Moss by Goldfield and Banks. I thought about comparing it to Sydney Rock Pool by Arquiste. The night I was testing this, I was just getting so tired, and I had compared it to so many things. It feels, like I said, it's very airy and ethereal. It almost feels dainty. It feels flowy. It's very pretty. But you'd really have to like something very oceanic, very minerally salty. And like I said, it does have that sweetness. It's really pretty. It's a style of fragrance that I do tend to like, so I really loved it, but I just don't know if everybody would love it unless you were into that style of fragrance. Have you tried White Pearl? And last but not least is Gossip Night by Gritti. And I have wanted to try this for so long. I've heard so much about it, and I could not have been more shocked with this. Like, I don't think I'm even going to be able to explain it. The level and the intensity of sweetness that this has. And by the way, I like it. I'm not saying this in a bad way at all. Like, I really like it. So the guys really like this too. I almost got a little shot of cherry cough medicine that time. I had never smelled that yet. My search to try to find something that this smelled like, well, it didn't work out. But I tried very hard. The best I could come up with was someone trying to make cherry Kool-Aid for the first time. They put the sugar, they put 2 or 3 packets of cherry Kool-Aid powder because they didn't realize how to make it, and they just overkilled on the cherry powder. and they were going to add water, but they made a mistake and they grabbed a bottle of peach flavored rum and they added just enough before they realized, oh shoot, that's not water. And they just left this much liquid in it and it made everything dissolve into a very syrupy, sweet cherry scent. Now remember, I do like it. It's so interesting, but the level of sweetness that it has is not anything I can describe, and it's not anything I've actually smelled before. I've never smelled anything at this level of sweetness. It's so sweet that it almost turns savory at times. At times I was thinking, do I smell hickory smoke? I thought, is it magic marker? Like black marker? Is it gasoline? Is it vinyl? Is it tobacco? I couldn't figure out what I was smelling. It was crazy to me. Somebody said it smelled like the strawberry wafer cookies. And when I read that line, I was sniffing this at the same time. And I got it. I got the strawberry wafer cookies just for that minute. I don't think I would have come up with that on my own. But if you have not smelled this, it would be almost hard to conceptualize the level of sweetness that it has. But it's not just an ordinary plain old sweet scent. Like, it's so interesting. It's actually fascinating. I really enjoy just smelling this. I could smell this stick all night. I really could. One thing that I said in my notes was that it was kind of like a plastic and cherry version of Mula Mula. Another thing that I wrote was if balsamic glaze was peach flavored. I just couldn't come up with a description for it. It's interesting. Like, now that I've sprayed this on here, I'm probably going to keep sniffing it all evening because I just find it mesmerizing. I actually really enjoy it. So guys, those were some of the samples that I've been sniffing lately. There's actually a few more. I actually tried Chérie by Perfumes for the first time. I really didn't like that one. I've also gotten dozens of samples from Scentbird that I haven't talked about. I tried Wave Child, which I really liked. Even though I have more samples that I haven't talked about, I think I'm going to be moving on to a little bit different type of content unless you guys want to see more sample sniffs. I have an unlimited supply of samples. I have so many from Scentbird that I've never spoken about. Let me know what you guys are interested in seeing. What would be helpful to you? I'm really glad you guys joined me today. Thank you so much for clicking on the thumbnail. Thanks for sticking with me to the end. If you're still here, will you please give me a thumbs up? Make sure you're subscribed, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye.